Right now, somewhere in the world, a grown adult is making the most ridiculous face they've ever made in their life. Their voice has gone high. Their words have lost all meaning. And they are completely, utterly unaware of what is actually happening inside the mind of the tiny human staring back at them. Pause. Because what that baby is experiencing in this moment is not what you think. We treat baby talk like a quirk, like an embarrassing habit we all do but never admit to. You know what I'm talking about. That shift in your voice the moment you see an infant. Suddenly you're speaking in a different register entirely. Higher, slower, more musical. Almost like you've become a different person. And for decades, scientists filed this away as cute, harmless, maybe a little silly. But here's what no one told you. That voice, that strange, sing-songy, slightly ridiculous voice, may be one of the most important things that has ever happened to the human species. It may be the reason language exists at all. The reason consciousness developed the way it did. And the reason you, right now, are able to understand every word I'm saying. This is not a story about babies. This is a story about all of us. Common theory destroyed. For a long time, the prevailing belief was simple. Baby talk, what scientists call infant-directed speech, was just adults being affectionate. We talk in a funny voice because we feel tender. Because the baby is small and we soften ourselves around small things. It was emotional, instinctive, essentially meaningless in terms of real cognitive impact. Some researchers even worried it might be harmful. A few pediatric voices in the 1970s and 80s actively warned parents against it. They said it was developmentally lazy. That babies needed to hear proper, adult, grammatically correct speech to grow their minds correctly. This advice was passed on. Written into parenting books. Repeated in clinics. Pause. It was almost entirely wrong. Researchers at MIT's McGovern Institute for Brain Research began looking at this differently. Instead of studying the voice of the parent, they studied the brain of the baby. And what they found surprised everyone. When a caregiver speaks to an infant in infant-directed speech, that high-pitched, melodic, stretched-out voice, the baby's brain doesn't just react. It locks in. The neural oscillations in the infant's temporal lobe begin to synchronize with the rhythm of the caregiver's voice in a way that flat, normal speech simply does not produce. This is called neural entrainment. And it is, in the simplest terms, the brain tuning itself to another brain. At Stanford, a separate team tracked infants' ability to distinguish individual speech sounds, the building blocks of all language. They found that babies exposed to higher amounts of infant-directed speech showed dramatically faster phonological mapping. Not just learning words faster. Learning the architecture of language faster. But here's where it gets stranger. The effect wasn't uniform. It wasn't just about the pitch or the tempo. It was about something far more specific. Something hidden inside the structure of the voice itself. So here is the hidden truth. When you speak to a baby in that funny voice, you are not amusing them. You are not being childish. You are not doing something instinctive and meaningless. You are teaching them what it means to be human. Every exaggerated rise in your pitch tells the baby, emotion has shape. It has peaks and valleys. It is not flat. Every slowed down syllable says, sound is meaningful. Pay attention to it. Every surprised face, every theatrical pause, all of it is a live demonstration of what the inner world feels like when it leaks into voice. The baby isn't just hearing you. The baby is learning how to feel. And not just their own feelings. The feelings of other people. The ability to model another mind, what psychologists call theory of mind, begins here. In these ridiculous, beautiful, sing-song moments. Long before the first word is ever spoken. But here's where it gets even stranger. Because this effect, this neural locking, this emotional teaching, it doesn't just happen with infants. And it doesn't just happen from parent to child. Experiment and story. In 2019, a team at Princeton ran an experiment that has since become quietly famous among developmental neuroscientists. They placed mothers and their infants in separate fMRI scanners, simultaneously. And they had the mothers speak. What they saw on the screens stopped the room. When the mother spoke in infant-directed speech, the voice, the warmth, the melody, the neural activity in the mother's brain and the infant's brain began to mirror each other. Not perfectly. Not like identical signals. But in a way that had never been captured before. Two separate brains, inside two separate skulls, beginning to move together. The researchers called it neural coupling. The infant's brain wasn't just passively receiving information. It was attempting to synchronize, to reach across the space between two bodies and align itself with another consciousness. Pause. Think about that for a moment. You went through this. Somewhere in the years before you have any memory at all, someone, a parent, a grandparent, a stranger looking into a pram, bent toward you and spoke in a voice they would never use with anyone else. And your brain, though you were barely formed, reached toward that voice. Began to learn the shapes of emotion. The texture of warmth. The difference between a voice that carries danger and a voice that carries love. You are not just observing this. You are evidence of it. Everything you feel when you hear tenderness in someone's voice, that small, quiet recognition, traces back to those first weeks. That first music. That first strange, high-pitched, ridiculous, sacred voice. Deeper layer. Here's the layer almost nobody talks about. Infant-directed speech exists in every single human culture ever studied. Every one. From the Amazon basin to the Arctic. From urban Tokyo to rural sub-Saharan Africa. Different languages. Different tones. Different words. But the same pattern. Higher pitch, exaggerated melody, slower tempo, emotional expressiveness. This is not cultural. This is not learned. It is built into us at a level that predates civilization. Which means that somewhere in human evolutionary history, the caregivers who spoke this way, who used their voices as emotional instruments, produced children who were better at reading other humans. Better at cooperation. Better at trust. Better at the one thing that made Homo sapiens the most socially complex species on the planet. The funny voice is not a quirk of modern parenting. It is a survival mechanism. One we've been running for tens of thousands of years. And every time you've ever felt understood, truly, deeply understood by another person, some part of that capacity was built in the first months of your life, by a voice going high in a way that made no logical sense at all. Warning and insight. But there is something here that should concern us. Quietly. Genuinely. We live in an era of screen mediation. Tablets. Phones. Video calls. Many infants now receive a significant amount of their auditory input, the voices that should be shaping their neural architecture, through devices. Flat speakers. Compressed audio. Voices stripped of the subtle harmonic richness that comes from a physical human presence in the same room. Researchers at the University of Washington found that video, even high-quality, interactive video, does not produce the same language learning outcomes in infants as live human interaction. The brain, it seems, knows the difference. It is looking for something real. Something warm. Something breathing in the same air. This is not a criticism. It is a reminder. The most sophisticated neural development technology we possess is not in a lab. It is not on a screen. It is in a human voice, bending itself in tenderness toward a face that cannot yet understand a single word. Powerful ending. So the next time you see someone cooing at a baby in a voice that seems completely absurd, that high, warbling, melodic, undignified voice, know this. You are watching an ancient ritual, older than writing, older than cities, older than language itself. You are watching two minds attempt to find each other across the impossible distance between oneself and another. You are watching the first lesson every human being has ever received, that the world contains other people, that they can be read, that they are safe, that you are not alone. All of that, carried in a voice that sounds, to anyone listening in, like it belongs to someone slightly unwell. Pause. Maybe the embarrassing thing isn't that we do it. Maybe the embarrassing thing is that we ever stopped. I want to ask you something before you go. Think back. Is there a voice from your early life you still remember? Not a face, not a name, but a feeling and a sound? A tone of voice that meant safety? Where do you think that response lives in you? Leave it in the comments. I read them. And I want to know. And if this changed the way you see something ordinary, share it with someone. Because the strangest thing about hidden knowledge is that it doesn't feel hidden once someone shows it to you. It feels like something you always, somehow, already knew. Pause. Next time, we're going into something darker. A quirk of human memory that scientists have only recently begun to understand. And it changes the way you think about every important decision you've ever made. Every single one. That one's coming soon. Don't miss it.